Welcome to the Liverpool Hall of Fame. Bill Shankly, that legend on Merseyside, turned Liverpool Football Club into the greatest power in the land. He found that elusive formula for lasting success and handed down the recipe. 30 years of tremendous achievement, an unparalleled collection of trophies. A succession of star names, great players, but none of them bigger than the club itself. The Hall of Fame looks beyond the historical record to bring you the stories behind this Liverpool phenomenon. The characters who captured the imagination. The essence of a footballing institution where successive generations continue to come out on top amidst the most intense competition. Winning with style, but never with arrogance. The talk about Liverpool is as entertaining as their football, and we've brought together for you 4 of the most famous names on Anfield's lengthy Roll of Honour. A personality now known nationwide, Ian St John, who was at the sharp end of the success in the 60s, and he had vivid memories of his own playing days.
He's got Evans and Hunt in the middle. And St John, oh, wonderful goal!
Ray Clemence reigned supreme with Liverpool through a splendid sequence in the 70s. Ray, a genuine goalkeeping great.
Summerby, again one of those well-flighted crosses. What a superb save by Clemence from Lee.
Alan Hansen's huge haul of mementos includes 8 league championship medals, and his goal in 1981 won Liverpool the League Cup.
So Liverpool's corner. Jimmy Case with it. Curled in there once more towards Hansen! And the goal!
And the mercurial John Barnes, signed in 1987, twice for his marvellous contributions to Liverpool, voted Footballer of the Year.
Barnes won it. He won it from Brock. He's got Beardsley going to his left, but still Barnes. That's a fabulous individual goal.
So, for each of our special guests, how was the Liverpool connection first made?
Bill Shankly came to Motherwell. I was playing for Motherwell at the time. And I had wanted to get away from Motherwell to play in England. And actually thought I was going to Newcastle because it was all sort of tied up, as sometimes football transfers get tied up. So I was going to move, and then Bill Shankly came up and got a hold of me. And once you got a hold of anybody, that was it. You were caught in the trap and you couldn't get out of it. And thankfully, I came down the following day with them and signed for the club, who were second division. I mean, these other young fellows only know Liverpool has been the top team probably in Europe, never mind England, but we were a struggling second division side at the time. When I say struggling, almost getting into the first division, but not quite.
Ray, it was Bill Shankly who signed you as well. What was the story behind that?
Well, I was playing for Scunthorpe United in the 3rd division, and I know that Liverpool had watched me quite a few times, and in fact it was only after I'd signed that I'd found that Liverpool actually watched me more than they'd watched any other player before, because obviously we weren't too sure about me in the first place. But the lovely story about Shanks is that when Shanks signed me, there's always a little bit of kidology to football management, and when Shanks signed me, I went across there, and I didn't really need any persuading, but sat in front of the great man. I remember him saying to me that we've watched you a lot of times, and he said, you're improving all the time. He said, we think you can play for England, he said. And he also said, you'll be in the side within a year. He said, Tommy Lawrence is past 30, past his best, and you keep improving the way you are doing. He said, you'll be in the side within the next year. So I went back home to Skegness, which is my hometown, proud as punch. I signed for Liverpool, talked to my mother and father about playing the 1st division in maybe 6 months' time. Came back for pre-season. Within 2 weeks, I found that Tommy Lawrence wasn't 30. He was 27, playing the peak of his career, and I had to wait 2.5 years to get in the side.
It was worth the wait.
Oh, not much.
Alan, for you, of course, it was the post-Shankly era, and Bob Paisley was in charge. How was your approach?
Well, firstly, completely different from Ray. When I signed for Liverpool, Bob Paisley hadn't even seen me play. I thought I was actually going to Rangers or Celtic all that season. There was rumours flying everywhere that I was going to either Rangers or Celtic. I really didn't want to come south. I would prefer to have stayed in Scotland. But of course, when Liverpool come for you, you automatically go. So Bob Paisley met me at Lime Street Station, said a few words. I went up and signed for Liverpool. And the great thing about me signing for Liverpool was that Scott Simon was the general manager at Partick Thistle at the time, the guy that used to be at Rangers. And he said to Peter Robinson, well, you know, it was £100,000 was the fee. How are you going to pay? So Peter Robinson says, oh, we'll just give you a cheque now. So Scott was about 64 at the time, and he panicked completely because he had to take this cheque all the way home to Scotland. And all the way home in the train, every 5 minutes, he'd sort of go to the side so I couldn't see, and he'd take the cheque out and look at it just to make sure he still had it with him.
John, what were your thoughts when Kenny Dalglish approached Watford and yourself?
Well, I think I must be the only player who can say and who will ever say that I came to Liverpool because no one else was interested in me. You know, at the time, there was a lot of speculation about was I going to leave Watford, what have you, but Liverpool were the only ones who came in for me at the time, and, you know, what a choice to have to make. I can only put it down to the fact that every time I played against Liverpool, they always seemed to put me down the middle to play. I don't know whether it's against Alan Hansen or Gary Gillespie. I happen to think it was Alan Hansen, but he said it's Gary Gillespie, and they always seemed to do well, you know. So that was in 1987, and the first year here was just fantastic, you know. But as I said, you know, what a club to have. If there was only one club interested in you could have a better club than Liverpool.
Was it a bit awe-inspiring because of the standards set by the previous generations represented here?
Not so much by the standards set, it's just that the not knowing what to expect from it, because you hear so many people's theories as to why Liverpool are successful, and you think you have to go through some kind of ritual when you get here, you know, to become a Liverpool player, you know, and it's not until you're actually here that you realise they just sign the best players and let them get on with it.
It all stemmed, Ian, from Bill Shankly, and obviously that there are a lot of stories around, many well told. Are there any that particularly appeal to you and your relationship with him?
There was a funny one about Clem, funnily enough, when we got into Europe, and Clem arrived, and we'd been a few years in Europe, so we were getting quite handy at it. Without winning anything, we were quite handy at it. And we played a German team, and we were 8-0 up from the first leg, you see. Now, Shanks, as you well know at that time, had the team, and that was that. He was reluctant to bring anybody else in. But Clem's there on the bench. Now, we're going to win the second leg, 8-0 up. And Bob Paisley said, well, will we give young Clemence a game, you know? And Shank, oh, wait, Bob, you know, too early for this. So Clem's on the bench, and Ian Callaghan scored right away in the second leg. So we're 9-0 up, you know. So Bob went, we'll put Clemence on. Oh, hang on, Bob. So finally, with 10 minutes to go, you know, Shank said, what do you think? He said, well, we'll put Clemence on. And Bob went with the sponge, threw the sponge out. Oh, no. So, I mean, I don't think Shank's fancy put them on, that's for sure.
That was obviously well thought of in those
well
days,
thought of, yeah. But that was funny.
There's another story where apparently he rather dismissed Manchester United with the Subbuteo men on the board.
Oh, well, yes. I mean, you know, other people have told that story, but I mean, I was there, along with all the other players, in the little room at the training ground at Melwood, and we'd all sit in on a Friday. And his team talks were lovely because you'd sit in there on a Friday, and you could only get about 12 people in the room, and Bob would be standing there, Reuben Bennett standing, and Shanks with the red men on the table for us and the whites for the opposition. Now, his stories would always be about all the great players, Matthews and Finney and Mannion and Carter and the whole thing, you know. It was lovely. You know, and if it was a really wet morning, and we just need to say, how good a player was Peter Doherty, boss? Now you're talking, son. And that would be another half an hour, you know. And it was great. And so then at the lunchtime, we'd all go home. But we're playing Manchester United now. He'd say, now, boys, United tomorrow. Be surprised if they turn up. So that was a nice little confidence booster for us for starters, you know. And then he'd pick the goalkeeper up, Alex Stempney. Couldn't catch the cold hand. So he was off the table. Tony Dunn, he said, couldn't tackle a fish supper. Now, they say that Sir Matt has got a bad back. I'll tell you something, he's 2 bad backs. The other one can't play either. So he was off the table. Billy Folks, you said to me, you get a hat-trick against him, son. He said, I've seen a juggernaut turn quicker. Nobby style, so Nobby gets all picked up. He says, I'm a Norman McGarden bigger than Nobby Styles. And he's blind as well, you know. Then he picked Paddy Crern up. He said, now, boys, Crern's deceptive. slower than you bloody think. So we were looking down, there's only 3 men left on the table, Law, Best and Charlton. So he had a little look and he went, "No, boys, we can't beat 3 men, you know." And as it happened, they beat us 2-0, but that's another story. But he would make us all the time, make you feel you were so superior to everyone. And it was great. And, you know, you sadly miss that in the game now, a manager who is so confident in his players and in himself that he can say, when they ask him the team, he says it's the same as last season.
That was frustrating for you, Ray, because you were waiting to break in. But when you were in the team, were you the beneficiary of this type of management?
Well, I was lucky. I sort of saw the end of it, and he was a magnificent manager. I mean, he used to stand at the end of the tunnel when the opposition sides used to come, and he used to stand there like James Cagney with the hands in his pockets staring at him. And you'd see them all file past and go into the visitors' dressing room, and then he'd come in, and you might be playing West Ham, and you know, in those days Bobby Moore was playing, the greatest centre-backs the country's ever seen, and he'd come in and say, "Just seen Bobby Moore, boys. He'd have a night on the tiles. Eyes," he said, "they're gone." And he'd go through 2 or 3 of the best players and slaughter them, and you'd sit there thinking, "Oh, yeah, he's seen them, we haven't. He must be right." And you would totally believe everything that he said. That when you walked out of that dressing room door, you did feel unbeatable, and you felt 10 foot tall. He was just an incredible motivator.
One of the great stories about Shanks is the story about in the close season that Shanks always loved his 5-a-side games. And this day there was an odd number, there was only 9 of them. And I think it was Joe, the milkman, his name was, he'd come down with the milk, as Mel would. And of course they were near an extra man, so Shanks goes to Joe and he says, "Do you fancy a game of football, son?" So he says, oh yeah, I've never played football in my life. He says, "Well, it's all right, it's just a 5-a-side game," so the guy wasn't too pleased. He said, "Look, honestly, I'd be terrible. Like, I've never played a game of football in my life." So Shanks says, "It's all right, son, you're playing for the opposition."
John, you were only a lad when the Shankly reign was on, but have you been aware of it since you've come to Liverpool, that he's still, in his absence, playing a part?
Definitely, and not only from the club point of view, but even from the fans' point of view. I mean, you talk about little kids who are like 10 and 11, who probably, well, obviously they weren't even born, but they still know Bill Shankly. Their fathers have told them about them, and the Shankly legacy is still there. And as he said, even what Liverpool at Watford, we used to just go straight to the training ground, and get changed, and I'm sure Tottenham they do the same, and then off you go. Whereas at Liverpool, everyone gets changed together. You get on a coach, you go down to the ground, you come back up. The windows are not allowed to be open. All these little quirks that they have all stemmed from Bill Shankly, And I come upon the train every now and again from London. I live in London, and I was coming up with someone who works for Kodak, and this particular person knows nothing at all about football. I just signed an autograph, so they knew that I played for Liverpool. So, they were finding it difficult to settle up in Liverpool. They only come up like 3 days a week. And he was saying, because I've come up from London, a young guy taking over the company kind of thing, and I'm finding it hard to settle. So I said, they all love Liverpool and everything. So, if I know a bit about football, it could help me. And I said, the only thing you got to know is like Bill Shankly. He didn't know who I was, didn't know who the manager was, couldn't English, no one. I said, you haven't got to know anything. All you have to know is the name Bill Shankly. So sorry, I said, how did he get on? He said he went in and he said that, what a great manager Bill Shankly was, and they loved him ever since.
Bob Paisley perhaps was an unlikely candidate to be such a successful manager. Alan, what was the essence of his contribution?
I think he had a great knowledge of the game. I mean, to be fair, Bob Paisley, he couldn't speak the game, but he could pick up little points that when you were playing, he could tell you after a game where you've gone wrong, just in simple terms. But I think he was so successful because he had a vast knowledge of the game, and of course he was a great manager. Everybody thought he was everybody's favourite uncle, but Bob Paisley was a ruthless manager. As ruthless a manager as I've played under 3 of them. If a decision had to be made, he would make it. And I think to be a good manager, that is what you've got to be. You've got to be ruthless. And Bob Paisley was a hard man. And I think one of the factors that Bob was so successful was that he had Joe at his side. I mean, Joe was the man you would turn to in that relationship. If anybody ever had a problem, they'd go straight to Joe. And really, Joe wasn't a man of a lot of words as well, but he could pinpoint things in a pitch that a lot of people wouldn't be able to pinpoint. And like I say, he had a lot of experience in the game, vast knowledge of the game, and he'd be the one to turn to if anybody was ever in trouble. But again, with Bob, one of my first experiences with Bob I played in the European Cup final, 78, and the next season I was left out. Alan Kennedy came, and it was a funny story because I wasn't happy about being left out. And I went in the office, and this was on a Tuesday. And of course, I said to Bob, I said, "What's happening? You know, I played in the European Cup final last year. I'm not getting a look in." So Bob turned around and he says, "I realise, son, you'll be playing Saturday." So I came out the office thinking, well, that'll do me fine. So I came back in the dressing room, and of course the lads said, "What did he say?" So I turned around and I said, "I'm playing Saturday." So they laughed. They said, "You've absolutely no chance." He says that to everybody when they go in there. And of course, come the Saturday, I wasn't even quoted.
He was ruthless, Bob. You hit it up a bit. You know, Bob Paisley, Shanks, like, loved every player. He loved all the players, and he felt it more deeply than anybody having to leave somebody out. And when it came to the time where we all have to be left out, he didn't like that part, and he ducked it. In fact, he ducked when I got left out for the first time up at Newcastle. He came in the dressing room. I was out leaving the tickets, you see, the usual thing, and he said, "There's a team," and he put the team down and did a runner out the door, you see. So I found out from the press lads. I'm standing in the, you know, the foyer there having a chat, and Jackie Milburn says, "Got the team sheet?" And he went, "Yeah, man," he says, "You're not playing here." And I went, "What?" I think it was the first time in your career you've been left out. He went, "What?" Stormed into the dressing room, of course, no Shanks, he'd gone. So Ruben and Bob, "Now come on, you know, calm down, just, you know, you get the jersey on the sub." Roger Hunt was there. Roger wasn't even playing, like he was. He's 13th. There's only one sub there, so Roger's 13th man. So I, like, raging at this. And then the boss came in with about 10 minutes to go, you know, "Come on, lads, bum, bum, bum." And off we went. Now, I said to him after, "Why didn't you tell me?" He said, "You weren't there," he said. "You weren't there," he said, "otherwise I'd have told you." No, he couldn't. I know later on, I mean, I was so annoyed, but later on I realised he couldn't face telling me. But I think Bob Paisley could face making decisions more than Bill Shankly.
John, Kenny Dalglish, as we would believe it, never told the players until an hour before the kickoff whether they were in the side or not, and he travelled around the country with squads of 18 players. But what was the essential ingredients of his style of management, do you think?
Well, on that point, I think that, you know, he was, as we were saying earlier, Alan said he's a great believer in preparing for the game from the Tuesday or Wednesday, you know. So I think that he believed that whether you're in the team or not, you should prepare for the game as if you're going to play. So I suppose that's why he didn't think that he needed to tell the players, because if there are 16 in the squad, the 16 should be expected to play. So come an hour before the game, when you know the team, regardless of whether you're in the team or not, you should have been prepared to play that match, you know. And he was, from what I can understand, he was totally different to Bill Shankly and Bob Paisley. Bob, you know, because he'll never come in and say, like, the other team are rubbish or this or that, or you're the best players in the world. But different people have their different styles of management, and, you know, you can't argue with someone's record, and he's, as far as I can see, since I've been there anyway, he's probably been the most successful manager, one of the most successful managers in English history.
Gillespie, Beglin again. Whelan. And Dalglish is in here. Yes! The player-manager scores the goal that may edge Liverpool nearer to their 16th championship.
He's always been able to make decisions. That's, I suppose, in a certain way, you could say he's ruthless as well, in as much as he'd pick the team which he thought was going to win the match. But his great qualities is he'd always look after his players. You know, he'd defend them. There'd be criticism within the dressing room, but he wouldn't let anybody criticise him out the dressing room. In a lot of ways he was a hard man, in a lot of ways he was a soft man. It's interesting, the three managers I've played under at Liverpool, to have a look at them. Bob Paisley was totally ruthless in every way. Joe Fagan was a really nice fella who had a great knowledge of the game. And Kenny was ruthless in a lot of ways, but soft in a lot of ways.
Everybody played a big part in the whole build-up of Liverpool, and what Alan was saying before I think was important, that you can be criticised in that dressing room, but it never went outside, never got to the papers, never got to the streets. And I think that is something that they're quite proud of there. All the dirty linen is washed inside, not outside. And Liverpool players, like all players, could be a bit naughty in the quiet and have done things, little indiscretions, but nobody knows about it simply because it never gets to the press. Whereas other clubs, you know, it's headlines, back page, and the whole thing. But Liverpool say, hey, you know, keep it in-house. And you get your fingers wrapped within the club, but it never gets out.
The league title in 1964 is followed by an FA Cup final a year later, and a moment of history in the making.
And that was a great turning point, I think, for the club, because it was again going through another barrier. You know, they'd won championships previously in the history, and we'd won it in the 64, but to win the cup was another barrier that the club went through on the road to the present successes. So it was very important. I think it was important, not so much that I scored the goal, I mean that's a personal little feeling that you have and you take through your life, but it was important for this club, for the city.
3 days later, it's a European Cup semi-final against mighty Inter Milan, and the Reds really turn on the style in the first leg.
A great goal by Hunt. Everyone back in defence now. Hunt, Carl Callaghan, he's done it. Strong going on his right. Hunt is onside. Yes. A great save as St John has scored. And that could put Liverpool in the final.
But defeat in the second leg comes through controversial refereeing decisions, which still rankle.
To this day, we all believe that the referee was bent, and we should have won it. But there were great games against Inter Milan, but we should still have won that. So, in a way, we were disappointing in our European finals and semi-finals. We should really have completed the job. So that, but I mean, you can't go through your football life and say, well, everything in the garden was lovely. And there has to be ups and downs, and they were downs.
Defeats like that were difficult to swallow. But it was the end of one chapter. A new order is needed to take the club into the 70s. No one makes a bigger impact than the dynamic Kevin Keegan, a bargain £30,000 buy from Scunthorpe.
Well, in the early days, I mean, Kevin made his name on being a hard-working, enthusiastic, and as his career progressed, skillful player as well. But in the initial stages, it was all about his hard running and his enthusiasm for the game, which really made his name. And I suppose just around that time as well, it was when George Best was having his problems, so the media were looking for another George Best, and Kevin's hairstyle, etc., just fitted the bill. But obviously as his career progressed, he became commercially very, very popular, so therefore he was doing a little bit more away from football as well as in it. But that's part of a footballer's career in those days, or probably it was the start of people being used outside of football more. And it meant him never missing a training session really, but sometimes there'd be times when you thought, well, he should really be here. He might not be training, but he should be doing something else at the club, and he wasn't. But he never ever let you down on the Saturday, which was the most important thing. And I think as a player, if you've got somebody who's got exceptional ability and you know who can win trophies for you, then you have to make one or two little leeways.
Toshak. Beat the world, Keegan! Highway. Good cross for Keegan's head again. And Keegan blasts the shot, and it's in!
Just to deal with a few specifics, the UEFA Cup in '73, a European trophy for Liverpool, and pretty hard going in the second leg against Mönchengladbach.
Well, it turned out to be, because obviously we had the first leg, and it was one of those strange situations that we played them in the first game, and it absolutely lashed down with rain, and within 20 minutes or 25 minutes the game was called off. There was no way you could pass the ball. There was water stood all over Anfield, and again Shanks' wisdom in the next 24 hours was to bring John Toshak back into the side, who wasn't. He had Brian Hall in the night before, and he took Brian out and put John Toshak in, and we went out the following night and we won the game 3-0. I managed to save a penalty sort of late on. We were winning 3-0, and at that time it didn't seem important. It was just nice to save a penalty down the cop end. We went out to Borussia Mönchengladbach, and there was a thunderstorm about half an hour before the game. And it was a marvellous playing surface, and obviously the water on top of it had just made the surface so quick. And Borussia Mönchengladbach had Gunther Netzer playing in midfield, And he had one of those nights when he just kept pinging 40 and 50-yard balls around. And I think for about 60 minutes, we never got out of our own half. We were 2-0 down in 20 minutes, and it really did look like we were going to be struggling. Thankfully, the last 30, their legs went a little bit, and we got control of the game and might have scored a goal maybe in the last 10 or 15 minutes, something like that. But the penalty save from the 2 weeks previous hadn't seemed important, but at the end, if I hadn't saved the penalty, then they would have won the European Cup on the away goals. So people say to me, what's your greatest save and everything? I say, well, you look at it in terms of importance, and at the end of the day, that was probably one of the most important saves I ever made.
Their first trophy for 7 years heralds the beginning of a remarkable period of success. It's 1974, another cup final, and a threat looming from the northeast.
Michael McDonald had said all week what he was actually going to do to Liverpool, but on the Saturday I think he actually had 2 shots, both of which went nearer to the crowd than they went near my goal as such. And on the day, Liverpool were by far a better side. It was probably the most one-sided cup final for many, many years. It was a marvellous match to play in, although I didn't do much of the playing. I was just at the other end.
And Shanks' army, this Liverpool side, swarming forward now. Hall. Keegan! Goals pay the rent, and Keegan does his share. Good flick by Toshak to Highway. Could this be 2? Yes! Beautiful ball to Smith. He didn't have to move to get it. Paul to Smith. Highway, Liverpool showing them party pieces. He wasn't offside. Smith. Yes! Keegan second. And Newcastle were undressed.
Parading a trophy is now a familiar sight for the Reds. This after the most comprehensive FA Cup final win in modern times. For Shankly, though, it's the last hurrah. He leaves the old stadium with a secret that will send the football world into shock. He announces his retirement, and the statement that follows has an eerie ring to it.
I think that if you've got a pressurised job over a long period of time, which has been a long time here, 14 and a half years, I think that there comes a time when you're a little tired, a little fed up, if that's the word, and that you feel as if, goodness gracious, why should I carry on?
Shankly's number 2, Bob Paisley, is now thrust into a position he doesn't really want, but the formula for success continues. Take 1976, when Liverpool visited Wolves in the final match of the season, needing a win to clinch the league title.
Just into the centre circle, nodded down, comes to Richards. Kinden's moving for the return, that's a good ball, a chance here for Steve Kinden, and he makes it! And gives Wolves a lifeline. Under 15 minutes left, and Liverpool still looking for this vital goal. Chipped up in the box, on by Toshak to Keegan, and the old firm have done it. 1-1, and that will be enough. Look at the delight on those faces of players and spectators. Neil knocking it in, comes sideways, Toshak taking his time, but using it to perfection. 2-1. Keegan. Liverpool ending the match and the season in fine style. Here's Ray Kennedy, stepped his man quite superbly, and what a lovely left foot to make it 3-1. The first 2 goals from the old firm of Keegan and Toshak, and the last one from Kennedy, who's made such an advance this season. The Kop spilling onto the pitch to celebrate the victory and the championship, and a championship won in style.
Just fantastic atmosphere. I remember coming back on the motorway, and the M6 was actually stopped, and the team coach couldn't go anywhere, and the fans were walking around the M6, and scarves were coming around the coach. And probably the most fantastic story about that game was in the dressing room beforehand. We're all in the dressing room beforehand. There's so many thousands of fans trying to get in. Obviously, the lads know the old Wolverhampton dressing room, which is right next to the road. And like Tomo, who knows every Scouser that there is, he's playing for the side, and there's a knock on the door. And Tomo goes, because in those days you used to have to give your tickets out to your friends right outside the door. Tomo goes to the door, gives out some tickets, and then said, "Oh, just come through here." Now we're thinking there's going to be like 2 or 3 of his mates coming through the dressing room to get through. Well, next thing, there's about 50 to 100 trooping through with their scarves and the banners right through the dressing room to get into the ground. It was absolutely fantastic.
Liverpool, the club of the people.
That's right.
Well, Liverpool are now back on the trail of the European Cup, and the next season they reached the final, played in Rome's inspiring Olympic Stadium.
Probably the finest night of my life, I would think, because we had a sort of 10-day spell where we'd won the cup on one Saturday, the FA Cup final the following Saturday, which unfortunately we lost to Manchester United, and then 4 days later we had the European Cup final. And my sort of recollections of that was that how sort of down we were on the Saturday and how we tried to lift ourselves for the game in Rome. And we've been told when we got to Rome there was going to be some 9,000 Liverpool fans there, which is a tremendous achievement for that many fans to travel that distance for a European Cup final. But it was when we actually came onto the pitch beforehand to look at what sort of boots and what was pitched and sample the atmosphere. There wasn't 9,000 fans there was 26,000 fans there. You know, people had sort of sold televisions, videos, anything to get the money to be at Liverpool's first European Cup final. And I remember walking off that pitch and us walking back into the dressing rooms, and we all just looked at each other and said, look, how on earth can we not perform and lose this cup final when these people have made these sacrifices for us?
Alan, you were there a year later. Did you feel a great responsibility as a young player as Liverpool was striving to retain the cup?
Well, suddenly, you know, I've come from Partick Thistle, and a year later you're playing the final of the European Cup. It was sort of breathtaking, and I remember, you know, the pressure hit me about half an hour before the start of the game, and then I just thought, like, my mates in Scotland would be watching me playing this game. I mean, when you're a kid, you talk about the European Cup, the great Real Madrid teams, etc., legends, and then all of a sudden, you're playing at Wembley in front of 100,000 people. I remember going back to the hotel that night and looking at my medal and thinking, boy, have I arrived here. You know, it was just fantastic. It was a great feeling to play in a European Cup final.
It was the start of one of the greatest medal collections in the world.
Well, you know, some great stories. The next European Cup final I played in was the one in '81 in Paris, and that was another great night.
Well, I think the best atmosphere I've ever played at Anfield goes back to European football. And that was St Etienne in '77, the quarter-finals of the European Cup. St Etienne at that time were one of the top sides in Europe, and we came across, I think we were losing 1-0 from the first leg, and Kevin Keegan virtually scored with his first touch to make it 1-1. And then just after half-time, St Etienne went in front. They equalised at Anfield, which put them 2-1 in front, and it looked as though we were going to be out of the European Cup. And then Davy Fairclough, super sub, came on and just changed everything. And I've never experienced an atmosphere in that stadium like that particular night. Nobody was sat down anywhere. The Kemlyn Road, the main stand, people were stood on seats. And when you're out on the pitch, it actually felt like the whole stadium was going to come in on top of you. It was just an incredible atmosphere on that night. And that obviously was the stepping stone for us to go on and win the European Cup that year.
Atmosphere here tonight, matching the wall of noise which surrounded the players at St Etienne a fortnight ago. Keegan. Djokovic has missed it! Case didn't get it right away. Rushdown, brilliant save! Bartonai. Bartonai shot swerved and goes in! Callaghan, Neil, and Toshek going after it. Kennedy, too soon! And Fairclough is onside. This now could be interesting. Fairclough!
I don't know the glory years of playing in Europe and stuff with Liverpool, you know. So if people say how much Liverpool miss being in Europe, I could understand that. And I could say Liverpool desperately need to be in Europe. You know, one of the best clubs in the world they should be in. But from a personal point of view, having not gone through the whole thing of being in Europe and winning these trophies, I mean, I can't miss it because I've never had it, kind of thing. But I mean, I could understand and you know, look forward to the day when Liverpool can get back in Europe. But I knew that in coming to Liverpool, not from even from a personal point of view, but that Liverpool would be winning things. You know, not really because I was here, but because of the nature of what Liverpool has achieved over the years. That I would have been very disappointed that I come to Liverpool and not won anything. Not from a, you know, from a big-headed point of view where I say I'm going to come and change anything, but from the nature of things that Liverpool are going to be challenging for things in the 3 seasons I've been there. You know, we've been in the 3 years I've been there, we've been a whisker off the Dublin every year. You know, not so much last year we lost in the semi-final, but that could have gone either way. We could have been in the final. But certainly in the previous 2 years, you know, a toss of the coin and we could have won the double 4 times, which would have been, you know, a hell of an achievement.
The Barnes era at Liverpool produces some of the most remarkable football ever seen at Anfield. And the visit of Nottingham Forest has the experts searching for new superlatives.
Houghton, Barnes, Houghton goes again, he's through. Ray Houghton. Beardsley, he seems to be able to find space and find Aldridge. And that is another superb Liverpool goal. Barnes working it to Houghton, Aldridge, Gillespie! Decisive finish. Barnes against Chettle. Oh, look at Barnes here. They're waiting for the pullback. Beardsley! Oh! A glorious goal again for Liverpool. Chettle. Oh, well played, Spackman. And Beardsley. And Spackman. And Aldridge! It's 5!
You know, Liverpool really, in the first 2 years I've been there, had performed like that in matches. Maybe we hadn't won 5-0. Maybe it hadn't been against Nottingham Forest. In a situation where we just beat them in the semi-final.
Tell them where you were on the Sunday night beforehand. What happened on the Sunday night? We beat them the Saturday at Hillsborough, and the Sunday night we went to the PFA dinner. That was the Sunday night before we played Forest that 5-0 game.
Oh, is that when we had all those bottles of? Oh, right, yeah. Oh, yeah.
absolutely.
I mean, well, the Liverpool, no. I mean, it's surprising because classic. We were, you know, you don't really know who's going to win the Player of the Year championship or what have you, but you know, you have an idea who are the candidates, and I think we had about 4 or 5 in the top 6. So we got there, and of course, you know, we expected to be somewhere near the front, but like, I don't know if you've been to the PFA, but they're like virtually 70 tables, and some of them even have to be behind the curtain. You've got 50 tables, and we were in this table behind the curtain.
We were in the kitchen.
You know, we're like virtually sitting there. So I mean, the captain, being the quiet kind of person, wasn't too happy with that. I mean, I wasn't that bothered. We were there, but Alan wasn't happy. So we called Gordon Taylor over, and mainly pulling his leg. You know, saying Gordon, what's happening? We got 5. We could win if we got 5 to the top 6. And Gordon was like panicking now, saying, "Oh well, I'm really sorry, blah blah blah, next year." So he said, "Oh well, no matter what you want, okay, you can have everything." Blah, blah. So I think we're drinking bottles of Bollinger.
No, the real story about that was Aldo's there and Ray Houghton. We've had a few coming on the train. So they're saying to me, "Get Gordon Taylor across here. We're not happy with this. This is a waste of time. Come on, get him across." So
you were the instigator.
So I seen Gordon Taylor coming across, and just before that had happened, because we'd 4 in the top 6, there's a guy there, a big Liverpool supporter, and he was looking at the champagne list and he's saying, "Barnes, going to win this. We'll have 2 bottles of Bollinger." He says, "Oh, looks £66 a bottle." So I'm saying, "Well, if he's buying 2, like we're all buying 2," I said, "Oh no." I said, "Wait a minute. We'll have the Moy, which is like £24 a bottle." So just that moment, I see Gordon Taylor come. I said, "Wait a minute." So Gordon Taylor comes across, you see, and I said, "Hey, Gordon," I said, "We've got 4 in the top 6 here. You've put us in the kitchens." So he's like, so Gordon, a sensible fella, he was trying to like calm the situation down. And of course the lads are going, "This is rubbish, waste of time." So Gordon was a bit flummoxed. He says, "Look," he says, "whatever drinks you have on this table tonight, charged to the PFA, so I went, 2 Bollinger!
I wasn't drinking.
John won it.
I wasn't drinking any Bollinger though, because I had a match on the Wednesday.
Yeah, because of the match there is, yeah.
You know, as Kenny was saying, prepare properly.
John Barnes receives the Players' Award from the then England manager Bobby Robson, recognition for some stunning performances in Liverpool red.
Beardsley, a lovely header by Beardsley for Houghton, knocked out by him towards Barnes! A brilliant goal!
Beardsley, problems again for Everton this time. John Barnes.
Barnes. Curled brilliantly! What a fabulous free kick goal!
Barnes lines it up. Oh, that's brilliant!
Oh, he's in trouble here with Rush and holds him. Barnes. A delicate chip, and it's in! A superb goal by Barnes!
Such a wealth of memories over the seasons, but what is the highlight for the man himself?
I think the cup final against Everton. You know, I hadn't played in the double team of '86 when they beat Everton in the cup final 3-1. But after everything that had gone on, you know, we got to the cup final, and it was a tremendous occasion once again. Merseyside derby at Wembley.
This is Nicol looking for McMahon. Good through ball. He got away from Ratcliffe. Oh, and John Aldridge in a great position. And Liverpool has scored in their first attack. Watson heads it forward to Cotty. Sharp. Chances here. Nevin. And outside him a chance too. And Grobbelaar. And it's got in. Nicol. Oh, there's Rush in there. Rush! Goal! Ian Rush! Liverpool back in front. Ratcliffe. Watson's up. Here's McCall again. Oh, yes! It's 2-2. Whelan. McMahon. Barnes. Rush! Goal! 3-2 Liverpool. Ian Rush gets his second. Liverpool are FA Cup winners for the 4th time.
Where you played in that derby where Everton were 2 up with, what, 16 minutes to go or something, and Liverpool roared back with Steve Highway announcing himself, really.
That's right, it was Steve Highway and John Tashak, really. It was John's first season, and Everton, I think, was 2-0 up. I think it was half-time or early in the second half, certainly, and it looked there was no way back for us, and then all of a sudden Stevie Highway started making inroads down the left-hand side, and it was from one of his crosses that, that Tosh scored the first goal.
Tommy Smith's really wriggling to get himself out of trouble there. And Whittle! Yes, he's got it! Morrissey. And a good return pass. He's onside. Royal unmarked to the back. Here he comes. Good goal! Tommy Smith to Highway. And he's over Hurst's tackle. Man in the middle, and he scored! What a goal! Steve Highway! Used to take the throw. And Highway's off again. And a useful cross. Josiek! Steve Highway, when you think that this time last year he was playing amateur football. This is Lindsay. And here's Lawler coming round. Goal!
As well as their footballing ability, Liverpool's sense of humour is legendary. And in every team, there's a fall guy. Here's the present one. Yes, it's Steve Nicol, 10 years at the club, a skilled defender who contributes his share of important goals as well. But off the field, it seems he falls into the gullible category.
The thing is, with Nicol, there'll always be something. You always come with a line that will beat you. And the one is, we're preparing in Israel for the European Cup final. So I've done my hamstring the week before, so I think I'm going to miss the game against Roma. So I'm sat there out having a drink. Kenny isn't there, because like, he's not drinking, he's back in his room, you see. So I'm down in the dumps, like, I'm not talking to anybody. So Nicol suddenly turns to me and he says, Al, he says, what's wrong with Kenny in this trip? Is there something wrong with him? So I said, just off the top of my head, I said, he's got 6 months to live, he's dying, right? So he went like that. No, right? So he's going, you're kidding. So I said, oh yeah, he's in his room, like, I said, don't tell anybody. He's like, oh, I'm not gonna. So anyway, he goes to the toilet, so Graham Souness has clocked us. So he says to me, what were you saying to him? I said, Kenny's dying, incurable disease, right? So Graham says, take him back to the room to see Kenny. I'll phone Kenny up and tell him you're coming, you see, right? So, like, guess it, right? So we play our cards, right? So this is true. I said to Nicol, I said, I'm going back to see him. Fancy coming? Aye, right. So we get in the taxi to go back to see Kenny. He's looking at one window, I'm looking at another window. So he suddenly turns to me and says, see when we get in there, show him no pity. Right? Says, the worst thing you can do is show him any pity. So I was like, oh, right. So we get back to the hotel, right? So I gets on the phone to Kenny. I said, has Charlie phoned you? Aye, I'm expecting you. So it takes two beers up and a martini lemonade for Kenny, right? So we get in there. So we sit down and Nicol's going to him, can't believe this, I just can't believe it. I never knew. So Kenny's going, Al, I thought I told you not to tell anybody. So I said, well, Nicol was upset, like, and he was wondering what was wrong, so I told him. So Nicol sat there and he's gone, he's virtually talking to himself, and he's going, I can't believe it. So he suddenly turned around with a classic line of all time. He turns to Kenny and said, here, I was wondering why you were playing so badly. Oh no. He went out the room and I said, have you got anything to say to Kenny? Like, because when you came here, Kenny helps you. He said, oh, here's Kenny, I'd just like to wish you all the best. I'd like to thank you for everything you've done for me in football. So Nicol goes out the room and Kenny and I, honestly, like, we're on the floor laughing, we're in bolt, right? So he said to me later on, I couldn't understand what you were laughing at, like, in the room. So we went from there up to the square, and all the lads knew what was going on. I'd taken Nicol back, so we got up there. So Nicol sat down. He still thinks he's like 6 months to go, and he's going. So Tom says to him, he said, what's wrong with you? We're supposed to be, like, on holiday here, or preparing for the European Cup. We're having a drink, what's wrong? Can't tell you. So Tom was kept at him, right? He's going, come on, what's wrong with you? Come on, have a drink. No. And then he suddenly got to him and says, I'll tell you what's wrong with him. I'll tell you what's wrong with him. He's up there in that room and he's dying. He's got 6 months to go. So Tom says, who? Kenny, he's dying. So Tom said, Nick, they'll wind you up. I've been in there, he's dying. But honestly, as soon as I told him, like, he wasn't believing it, they're all saying, like, Nicol, it's a classic wind-up. As soon as he said it, he was, we'll get on to something else, don't we? We'll talk about something else. Oh, brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I just finished by asking you all a difficult question, really. What do you think the essential attribute of Liverpool Football Club has been? Why have we had these 30 years of marvellous success here?
Well, I think the pride in the club that instilled by the boss, Bill Shankly, he gave everybody a pride in the club and instilled into everyone that you were playing for the people. And I think that is something that the strain has gone right through and carries through by all the teams after our team.
I would agree totally with Ian, plus simplicity. People say to me, what is the secret? That's one word, it's simplicity. They do everything the simple way. And there is a saying in Liverpool Football Club, look after the small things and the big things look after themselves, and that's what they always do.
Alan?
Well, I would have to agree with that as well. Simplicity, continuity, people know what they're doing right from the directors to the people that go on the pitch. Obviously, you've got to have the best players. Somebody once said, once you cross that white line, there's nothing anybody can do for you. But you know really what you are doing before you cross that white line. In actual fact, Liverpool Football Club have got it done a fine art.
John?
I think there are a lot of major factors, but the biggest one for me is their attitude towards winning. I remember winning in the first year we won the championship, and I can imagine at other clubs winning the championship once would have been right. We've done it. At Liverpool, once you win the championship, that's it. I didn't even see the medal till the next season. In fact, I saw it because Running Around came and threw it down on the on your place. That's how you get your medal. You know, you got to do it again next year. You got to do it again the following year. And I think that, you know, we don't rest on our laurels. I think that even after winning the double, you know, you got to do it. That counts for nothing. That's past. You got to do it again. And I think that that's the biggest thing in terms of the continuity of winning things every year. I think I wouldn't say it's easy to win the championship or easy to win, but I think it's easy to win it and then fall by the wayside or not win it again and live on your past glory. So at least we've done it. But Liverpool, with the staff they have, they'll never let that happen.
So can we look forward to another 30 years, do you think?
It's asking a lot. It's asking a lot, but if the people involved now abide by the standards set down by the teams and the players of the past, then I don't see any reason why not.
Hope so. We'll have a few more good lunches on the strength of it. Thanks all very much indeed. Appreciate it.